But with that being said, we're going to move on to the next segment, and I'll be sharing my fight prediction between Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler. So, this lightweight title eliminator fight between Charles Oliveira and Michael Chandler will be taking place in the co-main event slot of the John Jones and the Stipe fight, taking place this weekend in the world of UFC. So, these are my following storylines heading into this fight. Is Michael Chandler ready for this fight? Michael Chandler has not fought 2 years. That was the last time we seen Michael Chandler in the octagon when he lost against Dustin Poirier in 2022. He's been inactive for a total of 2 years, waiting patiently for that big fight against Conor McGregor. Didn't get in 2023, and obviously didn't get in 2024 when Conor McGregor pulled out of the UFC 303 event this summer. So, this is what's setting it up. When Michael Chandler returning to the octagon, we're going to see if ring rust or the octagon rust is going to play a factor on Michael Chandler for this fight. It's a long time coming, but I'm excited to see Michael Chandler back in the octagon. But we're going to see if he can win this fight against Charles Oliveira. Now, next, can Charles Oliveira get back into title contention? Now, Charles Oliveira has not been the lightweight champion since May 7th of 2022, when Charles Oliveira missed weight and he was stripped of the lightweight title. He has not held that lightweight title since. And since then, he's had some ups and downs at the lightweight division. I mean, obviously, he lost to Islam Makhachev. Then he was up when he defeated Ben Darvish, but then got defeated by Arman Sarukin at UFC 300 earlier this year. So he's had some ups and he's had some downs. And also, who could ever forget when he was supposed to fight Islam Makhachev in a rematch at UFC 294, but unfortunately had to pull out of the card. So, man, my heart goes out to Charles Oliveira. He's been through some ups and downs since he lost that lightweight title by being stripped of missing weight in May 7th of 2022. He's been through a lot. Man. And final storyline is, can Michael Chandler learn from his mistakes that he had against Charles Oliveira when they fought 3 years ago? Now, this is a highly anticipated rematch at lightweight. We all know the history between Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira, when Charles Oliveira knocked him out in the second round when they fought a few years ago. Can Michael Chandler learn from those mistakes and avenge his loss in the co-main event of UFC 309? Enough of the storylines. Let's get into the tail of the tape here. Michael Chandler is 23-8, 23 victories, 8 losses, 11 knockout victories, 7 submission victories. Currently the 7th ranked contender at the lightweight division, stands at 5'8", and has a reach advantage of 71 inches. Then I'm looking at Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira has 34 victories, 10 losses to his resume. He has a total of 10 KO victories, 21 submission victories. Currently the 2nd ranked lightweight contender. Stands at 5'10" and has a reach advantage of 74 inches. So the height and the reach advantage goes in favor of Charles Oliveira. These are the following game plans that I have for these lightweight fighters to follow if they want to walk out of Madison Square Garden with a big victory and possibly a title opportunity for 2025. Starting off with Michael Chandler, I think Michael Chandler is going to have to fight coming forward. In the first fight, he rocked Charles Oliveira with several strikes and nearly finished him in the first round, which is very surprising. And Charles Oliveira, he even busted open Charles Oliveira with some strikes in their first fight in the first round. So if Michael Chandler could do that fight coming forward, catch Charles Oliveira off guard with some strikes and possibly land a knockdown, that could open up the door for Michael Chandler to land a knockout victory for this fight. Now next, Michael Chandler's going to have to shoot for some takedowns. Now you're playing a risky game, possibly getting on the ground with Charles Oliveira, but Michael Chandler is a phenomenal wrestler. He's going to have to use that wrestling background to shoot for some takedowns to take Charles Oliveira off his feet, but he's got to be careful on the ground. And I think if Michael Chandler can find a way to land some takedowns, take control on top of the mount, on the mount position, land strikes and some elbow strikes, gaining ground control, he has a good chance of winning this fight. But last but not least, Michael Chandler's got to be, he's got to be alert defensively. I'm like, damn. I mean, he cannot get caught with another quick shot or get caught in submission traps on the ground if the fight take place on the ground against Charles Oliveira. Because Charles Oliveira can end the fight in a blink of an eye if you're off your game defensively, whether the fight's standing up or on the ground. So Michael Chandler's got to be alert defensively when he's fighting Charles Olivera. Now the game plans for Charles Olivera, he's got to out-wrestle Michael Chandler here. Charles Olivera has the most submission victories in UFC history with a total of 21 submission victories. You don't get that by accident in MMA. That's impossible to get by accident. So Charles Olivera is obviously good. He has that jiu-jitsu background. In their first fight, it looked like at times he had Michael Chandler uncomfortable on several positions on the ground. I think that could be an important ingredient for Charles Olivera to pick up this win against Michael Chandler by out-wrestling him on the ground. Now next, Charles Olivera's got to use his MMA and IQ background and his IQ to bait Michael Chandler into making mistakes. Charles Olivera has the skills to change the fight in a blink of an eye, literally, and he can finish his opponent whenever he wants, when he's in control of the fight. He finished off Michael Chandler under 15 seconds in the second round. A blink of an eye. The momentum turned in Charles Olivera's favor, won the fight. So he could definitely do that in this fight against Michael Chandler. Now, last but not least, I think Charles Olivera is going to have to take Michael Chandler into the deep waters if necessary. Now, he's going to have to control the pace of the fight. I think Charles Olivera has the greatest cardiovascular endurance in the lightweight division as we speak today amongst active lightweight fighters in the UFC. I think he has the best gas tank in the whole entire division. So, once again, I have to say, the longer the fight goes on, I think it favors Charles Olivera because he's been in and out of the octagon compared to Michael Chandler, who's been inactive for the last 2 years in the octagon. So, the longer the fight goes on, I think it favors Charles Olivera for this fight. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Charles Olivera to win this fight by submission in the second round against Michael Chandler in the co-main event at UFC 309. Now, I know there's only been one man that has submitted Michael Chandler, and that was Dustin Poirier. But I do believe that Charles Olivera will be able to outsmart Michael Chandler into making mistakes in this fight. Whether it's on the ground using his grappling background or sitting back, fighting off this back foot and fighting comfortably like that, because Charles Olivera possesses a lot of power and he's able to land a lot of significant strikes. I think that's going to be the downfall of Michael Chandler here. And I also think inactivity might be the downfall of Michael Chandler here. He hasn't been in the octagon for 2 years. He's been waiting patiently for that fight against Conor McGregor, sitting on the sidelines, being on the shelf, waiting for a guy that hasn't been in the octagon since 2021 might be the downfall here. Because you're fighting Charles Olivera, who is hungry for another opportunity at the lightweight title. He's been through some ups and downs since he's been stripped of that title in May 7th of 2022. So I had to favor Charles Olivera winning this fight because he could change the fight in a blink of an eye. I just trust his grappling game more. I trust him setting up traps to land significant strikes on Michael Chandler or bait him into making mistakes on the ground if the fight takes place on the ground. And that's why I do believe that Charles Olivera is going to win this fight by submission in the second round against Michael Chandler, co-main event at UFC 309. But that is my Michael Chandler versus Charles Olivera fight prediction.